They don't have range. If no one's shooting at them, so they can go slow and in a straight line to conserve fuel, they can go 1,000 miles, maybe. Most of them you're talking under 400 under a war scenario, whereas our fleet is entirely blue water. So if there is a real conflict in which the Chinese are involved, someone who does not care for them, and that is a long list these days, is going to put 2 destroyers in the Indian Ocean basin and cut the energy line, and China deindustrializes within a year. They are the most vulnerable economy on the planet. And that's only the second reason why I don't see the Chinese surviving the decade. Anyway, back to us. Checkbook map again. I think you know where you are. This is the most important cluster of checkbooks in the history of human civilization. Marshalltown, Iowa, where I'm from. Bismarck, North Dakota. Moving on. This is not a frat party. Population of Western North Dakota is what, 12? Yeah. This is not just a bunch of dudes leaving the lights on. Yeah. It's lit up because of a problem with transport. Now, oil's a liquid. You can put it into a container or a rail car or a tanker truck, whatever. Natural gas disperses. And so much natural gas is bubbling up out of the fields as a byproduct that we have to flare it until we can build out the infrastructure to capture it and transport it. And you can see it from space. Which means in the United States, only in the United States, not only is our oil and our gas produced where we live, for us, natural gas is a waste product. And waste product economics are brilliant because everyone loves free, right? This is what free looks like. This is Henry Hub. This is our primary natural gas pricing location. We don't have anyone here from the Gulf Coast, do we? Anybody? Yeah, okay. They have these things called hurricanes. And back before 2008, about half of our natural gas was produced in the offshore Gulf. So when a storm would come through, they would have to shut down the platforms and evac them. The storm would rage by, and then they'd have to go back and spend weeks undoing the damage, and that manifested as sustained price increases. But by 2009, the majority of the majority of natural gas in the country was produced onshore in the shale fields. And we don't care what the weather is on shore. So prices went low for a long time. Texans, of course, know what this little spike is. This is what happened last January when Texas got cold. Aw, it dropped down to 27. They did not cope well. Prices almost tripled. And this right here, this little thing, this is what we're all bitching about right now. It's like we're nowhere near the 50-year average yet, folks. And yet this has got us ripping our hair out. You guys want to see what the Chinese and the Europeans are bitching about? Because this is so much fun. Europe's already in recession. I don't care what the statistics say. China would be in recession from this if it wasn't that they're probably in recession from the COVID lockdowns. 3 years minimum for this to be fixed, assuming the Ukraine war stops tomorrow. We are looking at not a recession, we are looking at an energy-induced depression that is affecting multiple continents, probably already. But not here. This is a good problem. This gives us a competitive advantage in everything. Could we do better? Oh yeah. Could government policy be more on point? Yes. But the baseline that we're working from is pretty good here. All right. Oh God, I hate this graphic. This is the graphic that gives me nightmares. The deep blue, the deep green, those are the world's major producers and exporters of grain and soy-based calories. Everyone else on the map is a net import. Countries that are in orange and red import at least half of the calories they consume. In a world where the fertilizer system breaks down, we've lost potash because of the Russians, we've lost phosphate because of the Chinese, and because of the natural gas price increases, a lot of Europeans have already stopped producing nitrogen. Here are the places looking 40% reduction in their ability to grow the crop in the first place. This is famine. We will have it again in the fourth quarter of this year. We already know in the United States that a lot of farmers have crop switched away from corn and soy into things like hay that are less input intensive. We already know that in sub-Saharan Africa, they're just not using as much. We won't have an idea of what yields might look like until probably mid-September. That's usually when we get our first good batch of data. It's not enough. We will easily be having 500,000 to 1 billion people this year suffering from malnutrition by year's end. And there's not a single thing going on in the world right now that suggests to me that any of the fertilizer interruptions are going to be solved this year or next year. In fact, I anticipate them all to get significantly worse. This is a multi-year problem. And it's going to change the production portfolio. Now, every color on here is a row crop, but the brown is exclusively wheat. One of the fun things that happens with globalization is instead of competing within your own county and feeding your own county, you can specialize. You can produce whatever your climate and culture allows for you to do at volume for sending to other places. And in doing that, we stop growing wheat. So if you go back before World War II, the US was a big wheat state. But once globalization happened, we went into corn and soy because we could get more bang for our buck with that, and we pushed wheat to the margins. Wheat is cold tolerant and drought tolerant and heat tolerant. So you grow it where nothing else grows. And when you do that in the industrial age, you're growing the wheat on the margins in places where nothing would grow without those industrial inputs, things like fertilizer and irrigation. If those supply chains break down, not only can you no longer grow wheat there, you have to grow wheat on your better land. And that means the volume of internationally traded agricultural commodities is in the early stages of collapse. But production isn't going to overly change here, because for us, most of the inputs are local. Let's compare that to the big competitor, Brazil. This is Minnesota. Not that far away. Weird people, but not that far away. Winter triggers a soil recharge cycle, aka free fertilizer. The Midwest, for the most part, is prairie soils. Soil being the right word. This is the Brazilian Cerrado. It's tropical savanna. And the way you grow crops in a tropical savanna is you wait for it to rain, you break out your bulldozer, you chain up a tree, you pull it out by the roots, and then you poison the soil with lime for 3 to 20 years until you get rid of the excess acidity. You then are left with something with the consistency and the nutrient profile of beach sand. You can't grow stuff in sand unless you fertilizer the hell out of it. In terms of inputs per calorie produced, Brazil is the second least efficient producer in the world. But in a world of globalized agriculture and globalized inputs, this is a minor detail. Should something happen to the inflow,